Hi everyone, nice to meet you again and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about utilities. So first of all, let me talk about my experience on utilities. I moved to UK in 1999 as a A-level student. 2 years later, I moved into London for the university and I have to rent a flat for myself at that time. The landlord asked me to contact the utility company basically to set up my account. So I called the utility um, for the electricity, gas, and the water. And basically, they asked me for my name, my previous address, and also some personal details to set up my account, and also the bank details for the direct debit. After 1 month, guess what happened? I get the bills. At that time, the bill, I think it was still quite reasonable. Electricity, gas, and the water adding together was around £30 to £40 a month. And my first professional job in utilities was roughly 3 years after my graduation. I joined Oracle as a consultant. And I still remember the first day on the first project I was assigned. People were talking about bespoke pricing, and there are loads of jargons just coming out from the meetings. I was kind of clueless because it was my first utility related experience, in terms of professional job. The first word I remember was MPAN. So at lunchtime, I asked my colleague next to me. I said, this morning we were talking about this MPAN. Do you know what is that about? And she was quite shocked. I think she has much more experience than I did at that time. And she was quite shocked, but she told me it's a electricity service point identifier. I was saying, okay, maybe I just missed that. Yeah, I know electricity. But actually, I don't even know half of the words. So I know electricity and I know identifier. But what is a service point? So I went back in the evening and I checked on Google myself. Actually, I found a lot of words related to electricity on that day. So that was my start of utility career. So now let me explain a little bit on how utility actually works. Let's take an example of UK electricity market. I saw on the internet there's a differentiation between wholesale market and the retail market, but in terms of how electricity works, in terms of from generation to consumption, I'll focus on the retail side, and that's actually where I have been working mostly during my career. We can think about the market in probably three layers. So, generation, transmission, and distribution. So, let's talk about generation first. Electricity can be generated from different sources. And you can see in August 2024, in the UK, roughly 16% are generated from gas, 30% from wind, and 18% from nuclear. As the UK is moving towards this zero carbon target, you can see there's a clear shift from the traditional source like biomass, coal, gas, towards the clean energy. And if you're adding wind, solar, and hydro in this diagram, they are actually more than 50% already. On the transmission, we need to talk about national grid first. So, national grid is the transmission network in the UK, basically connecting everywhere electricity is generated to everywhere electricity need to be distributed, eventually to the end user. Electricity needs to be balanced on the network between the supply and demand. Otherwise, it will be lost or wasted. Recent years, because of this zero carbon target, there are a lot of new technology coming out trying to help with that. And you might already heard things like mega battery, network storage, virtual plant, and things like smart meters being installed at your home. All these efforts are trying to reduce the loss. And currently, there is a program for market-wide half-hourly settlement, MHHS. Basically, what it is trying to do is trying to settle all the non-half-hourly meters into half-hourly granularity. And this only by this program, it is estimated to save between 1.6 billion to 4.5 billion before 2045. Now let's move on to the distribution. This is probably where my career has been involved mostly. In the UK, deregulated market, there are many suppliers that are able to provide the electricity from the grid to the end user, both in residential and large industry and commercial customers. As the supplier is able to make the decision for themselves, they can actually decide where to source the energy and what type of energy they source, and what product they can choose to supply to the customer and what service they can supply to the customer. So in this area, there are a lot of demand for the billing, metering, CRM solution to help the supplier to support their business functions, to make it unique and to fit into their own business model. So with these requirements, plus the regular industry regulation changes, so the technology solution becomes a critical part of the business already. Let's just talking about billing alone. You could hear news about some of the supplier, they are fined huge amount of money due to a customer complaints. You can also find there are national protests because of the utility billing. Okay, a very brief introduction is now over. Before we finish today's video, I would like to introduce a few keywords to you. If you are new to the utility industry in the UK, you might have heard these words, but maybe not many people know what exactly they are. So first word is MPAN. As I said earlier, it is the electricity service point identifier. And there are two formats for that. So it's 21 digits, which is the full format. But normally in utilities, when you query, let's say you call up to the utility and you tell them the MPAN number is made of the 13 digit. So the first 2 digits is the distributor ID. The next 8 digit is the meter identifier. And the last 3 digits is actually the check digit of the combination of the distributor ID and meter identifier. Next, 2 keywords relate to distribution. GSP, Grid Supply Point, and DNO, Distribution Network Operator. So GSP is a classification system used to classify the UK electricity distribution network. So there are 14 GSP groups in the UK, and each of them is corresponding to a specific DNO that takes the energy from the transmission network at the defined GSP and supply to the end customer. Now, these groups are essential for managing the flow of the electricity into the local distribution network, and they are quite often used to validate the service point as a part of customer onboarding and pricing. Next, I would like to talk about a set of keywords related to supply. First one is profile class. So profile class is to classify the electricity consumer based on their usage pattern. And for 0, 0, that is a half-hourly meter. And from 01 to 08 is the NHH, non-half-hourly meter, based on the pattern itself. Next is the line loss factor. It's actually a 3-digit number, and it is used to calculate the distribution charge, and namely duals charge. Measurement class. Measurement class is similar to profile class, but it is actually further categorize the electricity meter and how the usage is used. So for measurement class, for A and B, they are NHH meters. A is for the metered NHH meter, and the B is for unmetered NHH meter. Okay. And then for C to G, it is for half-hourly, where D is actually used for unmetered half-hourly site. Moving on, last one, I would like to talk about standard settlement code. So SSC is actually a definition for the non-half-hourly metering system, including the required meter types, register, and data flow. So for each of the profile class and SSC specify how the EAC, estimated annual consumption, is calculated, and based on that, the utility supplier, they are able to calculate accurately for the non-half-hourly meters. Okay, as we get more into this domain, there are many more jargons going to come out. If you want to know more, simply let me know, or join the WhatsApp group. Right. So if you're a new starter in utilities, you are in a much better position than I was already. At last, I hope you like the video. Click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share to your friends, share to your colleagues, if you believe this will be helpful for them as well. Have a good weekend and see you next week. Thank you. Bye.